Every week on Bullseye, we like to leave you with a culture tip from me. We call it the Outshot. In 1970, Curtis Mayfield was still in his 20s, but he was an old man by pop music standards. He'd started singing professionally at 14. He was 16 when he joined the Impressions. Initially, the group had been a vehicle for Jerry Butler, who sang lead on their first hit, For Your Precious Love. Soon after that, though, Butler went solo, and Mayfield started singing lead. His singing wasn't classic soul singing. It wasn't powerful church choir stuff. It was sweet and quiet. They actually needed special microphone setups on the road so he wouldn't be drowned out by the other guys in the group. Curtis wrote and produced most of the Impressions' great hits, and they had quite a few. Most of them are tender ballads or gentle, brave, inspirational tunes. This one was a banned from the radio civil rights anthem in 1965.
Keep on pushing. I've got to keep on pushing. I can't stop now. Move up a little higher. Some way or somehow. 'Cause I've got my strength, and it don't make sense not to keep on pushing.
But by the time the late 60s rolled around, singles were headed out and albums were headed in. And while there was still some room for sweet soul vocal groups, the kind of doo-wop-rooted stuff the Impressions had been doing was basically old news. So in 1970, Mayfield hit the studio without the Impressions. And the first single he put out under his own name was starkly new and distinctly different. It was called Don't Worry, If There's Hell Below, We're All Gonna Go. It opens with a heavy, fuzzy bass figure and this vocal montage with a woman's voice talking about the book of Revelations.
Last night I was so depressed, and I went and got the Bible, and I turned to the book of Revelations.
Then Curtis comes in with language so strong that I had to say right now, for your benefit, that if you've got kids with you, you might not want them to hear it.
Everyday life.
Sisters, niggas, whiteys, Jews, crackers. Don't worry. If there's hell below, we're all gonna go.
It was a pretty bold statement of purpose for a guy who'd been known for sweetness. This was, by the way, before What's Going On, before all of Stevie Wonder's great albums. But change was already in the air. Curtis knew he had to make something new, so he did, and he was a leader again.
Wild and free is the way I wanna be. Making a new day, leading in a new way.
As much as it was new, though, it was absolutely of a piece with what he'd done before. Despite what that opening track's title suggested, it was mostly a hopeful record. It was about holding on to courage and staying the course more than it was about revolution. He wanted respect for the steeple as well as power to the people. Curtis never really made angry records. He made proud, beautiful, inspiring records that contrasted against the deep trauma of racism. They were defiant in that way. They contrasted, too, against the trauma of Curtis's own life. He grew up fatherless, often going hungry when his mother couldn't make ends meet. He knew what real pain was, but he never lost his belief in himself and his people.
We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true? We're just good for nothing, they all figure. A boyish grown-up shiftless jigger. Now we can't hardly stand for that. Or is that really where it's at?
Mayfield isn't quite a poet. Sometimes his lyrics clunk up a little, trip over their own feet. But the sentiments in them are so purely beautiful that it really doesn't matter. There's nothing false or insincere on Curtis. The songs radiate love. And Mayfield's melodic gift is almost overwhelming.
Hurriedly stepping so proud, Mother Nature's only godchild. Society salutes you today, and we'd like to say, God bless Miss Black America. Watch over Miss Black America. She cried tears of success. We wish her long happiness. Black America.
It's an 8-song record, 4 on side A and 4 on side B. None of the songs were smash hits the way the tracks on, say, Superfly would be a couple years later. Don't Worry made it to number 3 R&B, but didn't even crack the top 20 on the pop charts. And that was the only track that hit at all in the United States. But this wasn't a collection of hits, it was an album, a journey. Gritty, then beautiful, melancholy, then uplifting. Every song takes us somewhere. It was a new Curtis Mayfield, the start of the most productive part of his career, an incredible half-decade of exceptional work under his own name, and a fair few hits that he wrote for his label mates. On Curtis, Mayfield throws his arms around us. He says we're going somewhere together, and our first step starts here, where we stand. It's simple, and it's beautiful. That's my outshot.
Hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand.